everybody. All right. We're at that time of year now where, we look for winter weather. We have eliminated saying, rain is on the way. We now say precipitation is on the way. And, we know that there's all kinds of precipitation that can happen here in southern New England in the wintertime. We love it when there's just a nice powdery snow and it blows around and it can be, taken care of easily. Unfortunately, we live in a part of the world where, we've got the ocean, the warm ocean nearby, and a lot of times, our snow can be very heavy and wet, or it can have sleet in it. That really makes it very heavy. As a matter of fact, when I was with Dr. Mel, we once weighed one shovel, not that big a shovel, but we put the snow and the ice and even some water in there, and we lifted it up and put it on a scale, and it was 55 pounds. So just one, that's why we say, you can have what we call heart attack snowfall, where it's, got the sleet in it. It can have some water in it. And, of course, the snow itself can be very heavy. And so a couple of the snowstorms we're going to talk about are ones that had a significant impact in Connecticut on December 6th and 7th, 1996, and December 6th and 7th, 2003. We talk about storms that sometimes repeat themselves. And there are some of you that would love to see some storms repeat themselves, like the blizzard of 78, or perhaps the epic snowstorm of February 9th of 2013 with 3 feet of snow. There are a lot of us that would prefer to never see that happen again. It's amazing how you can go along and, the weather can just not be doing a whole lot. And when you look back at the last 2 winters, we've had, instead of 2 or 3 months of real winter, we've had 2 or 3 weeks of real winter, and that's it. The rest of the time, it was easy, very easy going. This year, we are seeing a bit of a difference. We're seeing the cold air having settled down more. Last November in Connecticut was 6 degrees above average, 2 days in the 80s, 2 days in the 70s, and we're talking about 10 days in the 60s, where November 2025 has had 1 day in the 60s, and that's it. The idea to have something average around New England, and keep in mind meteorological winter starts on December 1st, so to have something average is, going to seem like we're getting some really harsh winter weather when, in fact, perhaps, we don't need to think that way. We need to have the mindset that, hey, we're going into a new season now that can pack a punch. And a couple of storms that packed a punch around here, December 6th and 7th, 1996, and December 6th and 7th of 2003. These 2 storms were major nor'easters, and they left a tremendous amount of snow in places. The one in 1996, that was heavy wet snow. Widespread power outages. We had tremendous travel disruptions. Not nearly as famous as the big blizzard that had occurred the year before, but certainly northern Connecticut. We had a 1.5 feet of snow in places like Norfolk, Connecticut, Union, Connecticut. There were some higher amounts going up to the north. There were some places in western Massachusetts that had up and over 25, 30 inches of snow. 40-mile-per-hour winds, some gusts getting up there in the 60-mile-per-hour range. The power outage situation was quite remarkable when you talk about 240,000-plus power outages. Heavy wet snow weighing everything down and causing tremendous problems. The shoreline, lower accumulations, but certainly with the wind, there was a big impact there as well. And you can see from some of the footage that it was, not exactly the best travel conditions. Keep in mind, you go back earlier in time. Now, there's a 4-wheel drive vehicle. That looks like a Chevy Tahoe or Suburban. But you can see trying to shovel. This was some heavy, wet stuff, and certainly hard to get out of the way. Now, interesting fact here. December 6th and 7th of 1996, the big snowstorm, the foot and a half, heavy wet snow, 240 plus thousand power outages and a real problem. We didn't have any snow the rest of the winter, basically. So we started with an epic snowstorm and we ended with an epic storm. April 1st of 1997. We had another big blizzard. So the winter of 96, 97 started with a blizzard, ended with a blizzard, but in between, nothing happened. That goes to the extremes that we talk about, how Mother Nature can deliver on something huge in the storm department, but then can deliver on extended period of nothing, and that's considered extreme as well. So that's why we talk about getting into an average winter. If we could be consistent, be like we've been. Now, we were 3 degrees below average in August and 1 to 2 degrees below average in November of 2025. Having below average months is a tough thing for us to do these days. And so the fact that we're doing it, there's a number of factors in play. We look all around, the sun. The sun has been going absolutely crazy. And we've talked about this many times. When there's huge solar storms, huge coronal mass ejections, we get the really pretty aurora borealis. But we also have other big problems, communication problems, and we also can sometimes end up with problems with the weather here on Earth, even earthquakes and so forth. Yes, as I've talked about many times before, the last time that we had the sun, as crazy as it is, and of course these storms go in 11-year cycles. Last time we were looking at a sun that was, making a lot of ruckus was back in 2010, 11, 12, 13. If you go back and you look, the weather back then was pretty wild. And we had, a lot of big snowstorms on our roofs trying to get the snow off and canceling Halloween from a snowstorm and from a hurricane. Storms like December 6th and 7th, 1996, and then the nor'easter of 2003, that storm was... 992 millibar, 29.29 inches of mercury, 52 inches of snow fell in northern New Hampshire, 13 people dead, and it was a tough one with that one as well in 2003. We're looking at a storm there that was about 30 to 40 hours long. Very light, fine snow with that. All right, we're going to get to a storm next that, was big. We'll be back. All right, just go back over. Hello. I'll go back over the storm of 2003. The one in 1996 was a heavy, wet storm, 240,000 power outages. I remember being out of power for many days and couldn't get out of the driveway. The one in 2003 was a major nor'easter. It had, travel delays from D.C. to New York to Boston. 35.6 inches of snow fell just 14 miles north of Boston with the blizzard of December 2003. And as far as amounts of snow go, I do believe in that storm of 2003, the blizzard, that Bradley Airport had 19 inches of snow. That was an epic one. In 2003. Yeah, Bradley had 19 inches of snow. How about that? That, though, was a fluffier, lighter snow. And that snow went all the way out to the west. A huge, huge storm. Buffalo getting absolutely buried. When you look at the storm, it stalled off, basically right off the Massachusetts coast. 30 to 40 hours. The peak was Saturday the 6th. Snow, some rates up to 4 inches per hour in intense bands, 55 mile per hour winds, and all the way from D.C. to New York to Boston, the highways were closed, blocked. 13 people died, and it was a big blizzard in December of 2003. When you look at years, by the way, the winter of 2002, 2003, that would be the winter before this December storm, was one that featured a lot of snow. It came, a year after 9/11, the winter of 9/11, 2001, 2002, there was no snow. And then we had 80 inches in spots in northern Connecticut the following winter. And then it was followed the following December in 2003 by this big blizzard. Then after that, the winter kind of calmed down again. These storms, they pop up. A lot of times they, are, I don't want to say they're a surprise, but, we start to get ideas that things like this can happen. And then we try and give you an idea of what the impact's going to be. But when you have a storm like the one in December of 2003, that's a light, fluffy snow. It doesn't cake on everything. It doesn't break plow equipment. It's much easier to get out of the way. And those are the kind of big storms that we like. 19 inches, and you're basically brushing it off. I remember, the snow was so easy to move, unlike 1996. You like storms like that. That's what we wish for. But as I said before, we live in a world here where we just get too much in the way of warm air aloft. By the way, we talk about the sleet, but there's another component that happens in these storms, and we're going to talk about this in the next segment. When too much warm air gets in aloft and too much cold air is stuck at the ground, what do we call that? It's not sleet. It's not hail. It's something else. And we're going to get to probably one of New England's worst weather disasters ever, and one that maybe some of you don't remember. But you might remember this one, the Great Nor'easter of December 11th, 12th of 1992. So December 11th and 12th of 1992, epic, slow-moving, a storm that delivered severe damage across the Mid-Atlantic all the way up through New England. $2 billion in damage, 19 deaths. Coastal areas were, in the order of what has happened with storms like Irene and Sandy. The storm just set off the Delmarva Peninsula. The tides over 8 feet crashing in through New York City. Low-lying neighborhoods submerged. FDR Drive was submerged. Scuba diver rescues on the FDR Drive. Yes, that's what we're talking about in terms of the Great Nor'easter of 1992. This is the storm. One meteorologist got fired because of this storm. Yeah, was not the severity of it. You know how sometimes we get accused of hype? And it's like, you're hyping up stuff and it's really not that bad. This is the one you hype. And I remember the October snowstorm back in 2011 where I was getting accused of hyping. What are you talking about? It's October. What, and then an earthquake happened right when we were talking about this snowstorm, and they wanted me to talk about the earthquake. And I said, I'm going to talk about the snowstorm. So this one, December 11th, 12th, 1992, did not get the billing it should have. And this one really exposed the problems of what if a storm is along the Mid-Atlantic coast and it's curving in and it's pulling the water in, and what happens to the Jersey coast, Long Island coast, Connecticut coast, New York City area. Yeah, the water came in a huge way, and it was the worst flooding in 30 years in places like the Jersey Shore. Boardwalks were destroyed. Hundreds of homes were washed out into the ocean. What does this sound like? Sounds like Sandy, right? Yes, this is exactly Sandy, except it's in the wintertime, and it's a blizzard, and not a there was a lot going on with this in terms of temperature differential, but it was talked about how we were going to change things, and things are going to, we're going to get better, and we're going to, coastline, we're going to move, that's my producer, Juliana. She's making noise over there. She's jumping up and down. She loves big storms. When I talk about them, she just starts going crazy. Sustained hurricane force winds, 90 miles per hour. Ambrose Tower, Long Island, 93 mile per hour wind gusts. Offshore waves, 44 feet high. Snowfall amounts, Western Massachusetts, Berkshire County, 4 feet of snow. Drifts 12 feet high. Schools were closed for a week. In Connecticut, 27 inches at Litchfield, Connecticut. It was 26 inches up Case Road in Canton, Connecticut. Come down into Collinsville, there was like 4 inches, 4 inches. I was living there, so I knew. I figured out what elevation is all about with this storm. This was one we should have learned lessons from, especially from a coastal standpoint, and we really didn't do that great a job with it. It was about 240,000 people, Northeast Utilities, 240,000 customers without power. Throw United Illuminating in there, and you're well up and over 250,000 power outages. Storm surges and so forth. Well, I'll talk more about that, more on the big great nor'easter of 1992, which you may or may not remember, and then the big ice storm. Do you remember that? 1973. That's coming up, too. All right, the great nor'easter of 1992, it really showed us what elevation is all about in terms of who got the snow and who didn't. This one was, a storm surge that was 7.2 feet at Bridgeport. That was the highest since Hurricane Carol, a Cat 3 back in 1954. And 7.2 feet at Bridgeport is higher than Irene and probably about just as high as what Sandy did. 15 feet waves on Cape Cod beaches. Beaches were torn apart. Evacuations. The idea out on the Cape, unfortunately, 20 pilot whales were beached along the Cape. 7 died. The peak tide at Boston was just 1 foot below the record set back in 1978, over 9 feet. Snowfall totals, 27 inches in the western suburbs of Boston. So you can see this storm of 1992, the blizzard of 78 gets, all the big play, but you don't hear anybody talking about this storm of 1992, very much of the magnitude of the blizzard of 1978. And in some cases, it delivered more snow. Schools were closed for many, many days. And the east wind prevented the valleys from getting into the big significant snow, which would have brought the power outages up and over, a 500,000 or more. So like I said, living in Collinsville, I had 4 inches of snow. I went up to the top of the hill, going up 219, going up into the heartlands and whatnot. And, well, actually, I couldn't get up there because snow was so deep. So a disaster area in Connecticut, and that was declared by George H.W. Bush, and $46 million in relief, and $265 million for the insured in the state. Yes, the storm that, when you consider 1993, what happened in 1993? March, the storm of the century. So here you are in December of 1992, and you had this unbelievable nor'easter. But then, going into March, you're talking about the storm of the century that showed up. That goes with the winters that we had, 92, 93, 93, 94, 95, 96, which was our snowiest winter. So, there you are back in the early mid-90s with this crazy weather, and then you go back to the 2010, 11, 12, 13 period crazy weather. I think we're due again. So that's why we're saying, watch out, the extremes are coming. Okay, speaking of extremes, the Great Ice Storm of 1973. I remember having 2 families living at our house. How old was I? Julia, I have no idea. She said 41. What? No. I was 12 years old. This storm, one of the state's most damaging ever. It changed to freezing rain. That's what we're talking about. Warm air aloft, cold air is trapped at the surface. Liquid therefore falls from the sky, hits these cold surfaces, and you end up with, yes, ice caked on everything. And in some cases, 2+ inches of radial ice on trees and power lines. And, 1993 ice storm in Connecticut was one that is, should be talked about more. It's not talked about nearly as much as you would think. It delivered some snow up to the north, but the power outage situation was way up there in the 200,000 range. The idea for, right into the valleys, even right down to the shoreline, being encased in ice and being without electricity, being very cold and so forth. It was one that, again, probably wasn't forecasted that well. We've had those situations. We had the ice storm going back into 2002, western Hartford County, northern New Haven, in Litchfield County, 130,000 power outages. That was November 2002, and the forecast was for rain. And I got a call from somebody in Goshen saying I got a quarter inch of ice on everything, and it's continuing to ice. And so ice storms are very tough to figure out, and we don't get them that often, but it's something that needs to be studied more closely, and certainly one that is dangerous in the sense that you can really get trees to come down, power lines to come down, and you can end up without power for a long period of time. How about the storm of 1998? I was working as the head meteorologist for Northeast Utilities, and I remember with Jim LaChance, and it was an El Nino year, and up north, northern New England, upstate New York, northern Vermont, New Hampshire, western Maine, into Quebec, Canada, 4 inches of radial ice. What happened with that ice storm is the worst in history, and one that makes you stop and think about what Mother Nature can do. We've seen it so many times with these really wild and extreme weather events, and this is why we always have to be prepared. Again, as I said, do you know where you're going to go? Do you know what you're going to do? You know when there's our trees here. We've got too many trees, and so we talk about don't have the leaves on the trees, so that helps us in a wind standpoint. But if you get too much heavy wet snow onto power lines and tree branches, they come down, like with December 6th and 7th of 1996, or you get too much ice, radial ice. Everything comes down, and we're down without power for a long, long period of time. So you always want to be prepared for, the general snowstorm or the huge, big snowstorm. Do you have equipment in the car? You ever consider having chains on? Check your tires out. You'll find out that your tires probably aren't ready for snow and ice. Do you have a small shovel in the car? Do you know how to get the ice off your car? What if there is ice and you come out and there's ice on the car? How are you going to get it off? You put a scraper on that, doesn't work, okay? Having a bottle of de-icer, spray it on. Life's a lot easier. So it's being prepared. Blanket in the car, so forth. Being ready for what the Mother Nature can throw your way because a lot of times we go along for a long period of time without too much happening. But the ice storm of 1973, something to go back and take a look at. A storm that they did a drill in 1997 in New York City area. Yeah, they named it Hurricane Sandy, but this storm in 1992, they were going to change things, and they didn't, and then Sandy came along, and the epic floods from that one, too. So that's the latest from Storms of Furey. Thanks for watching. Juliana, thank you, and we'll see you again next time.